I first noticed her hands before I noticed her. They moved like she'd done this 1,000 times. Stacking receipts behind the counter, straightening a sugar jar, brushing away an invisible crumb. Calm hands, practical hands. The kind that knew how to keep things steady. I came to the cafe on Tuesdays, mostly because it was half empty by 8 a.m., and because it sat between the bus stop and the clinic where my aunt worked. The coffee wasn't great, but it was predictable. I liked predictable. She worked there sometimes, not every day. Maybe she owned it, maybe she didn't, I never asked. But she carried herself like someone who had already lived through the noise of other people's days and decided to keep her own quiet. Mid-40s, maybe. Hair tied back, a few loose strands softening her face. The first time she spoke to me, it was about the coffee machine. "It's slow today," she said, tapping the side of it lightly. Like she was talking to an old friend. I said, "So am I." She smiled, small but real, and handed me my cup before I even finished giving my order. That's how I knew she'd noticed. How many times I came, what I drank, maybe even how long I stayed before the bus came. Sometimes she'd ask about the book I was pretending to read. Sometimes I'd ask how late the cafe stayed open. The kind of conversation that existed just to keep the air moving. There was nothing romantic about it, not at first. Just easy. That morning, it was raining, the kind that didn't make a sound, just streaked the windows and turned everything a softer color. I sat by the far corner, phone on the table, screen lit with a half-typed message to my aunt I might be late. I didn't send it. She brought me my coffee without asking. "No sugar, just milk," she remembered. "Thanks," I said. She nodded, setting the cup down carefully. Then, almost under her breath, "You always sit alone." I looked up. "You noticed that?" She didn't look embarrassed, just thoughtful. I notice quiet things. That line sat between us for a while. The clock ticked too loud. The steam from my cup rose and disappeared. She stood there a few seconds too long, then turned back toward the counter. I watched her adjust her apron, push her hair behind her ear, and for no good reason. I thought about how lonely must feel different when you've lived more years inside it. When I finally checked my phone, there was a message from my aunt. "Don't forget dinner tonight, and don't bring too much. You always bring too much." She meant groceries. But the phrasing stuck in my head. When the cafe started to empty, I went to pay. She was wiping down the counter, humming something I didn't recognize. "Do you ever close early?" I asked, immediately regretting how that sounded. She raised an eyebrow. "You planning to help me lock up?" I laughed, or tried to. "Maybe. Depends what that pays." She smiled again, faint and tired. "Coffee, maybe a muffin." I nodded, pretending to think about it. "That's fair." As I stepped outside, she called after me. I turned. She hesitated, towel still in her hand. "Next time try the cinnamon scone. You look like someone who doesn't change his order often." "I could surprise you," I said. Her eyes softened. "Maybe." The rain had stopped when I reached the bus stop. My phone buzzed again. Another text from my aunt. "This is too much." I typed back before I could think. "You deserve more." But I didn't send that one either. I started showing up earlier. Not because I wanted to, but because mornings felt different when she was there. Like the day began softer, slower, like someone had quietly turned the world's volume down. She noticed, of course. She always did. "You're early," she said one Thursday, wiping her hands on a towel. "Bus came faster," I said, though we both knew I'd walked. She nodded, almost smiling. "You don't seem like someone who likes waiting." "I don't mind waiting," I said. "Depends who it's for." That earned me a look. Not disapproval, but something careful. A pause before she turned away. The kind of pause that said she'd heard me, even if she pretended not to. We fell into a rhythm. Not quite friendship, not quite anything else. Some days she'd pour my coffee before I even reached the counter. Some days she'd sit across from me for a few minutes when business was slow. I never asked her to. One afternoon, rain again, she told me something, small, almost unintentional. "I used to love storms," she said, eyes fixed on the window. "My ex hated them. Said they made him anxious." I stopped saying I liked them after that. I didn't know what to say. I just watched the light flicker across her face. "I think they're calming," I said finally. She smiled without looking at me. "You would." I wanted to ask what that meant, but I didn't. Some silences feel better left untouched. After that, I started noticing details: the fine scar near her thumb, the small crease in her wrist when she poured milk, the way she always checked the time before talking too long. Like she was timing herself not to linger. One evening, my aunt sent me to drop off a file at the clinic. When I stopped by the cafe on the way back, she was closing early. "You shouldn't walk this late," she said, locking the door behind her. "I'm fine," I said. "It's only a few blocks." She hesitated, then sighed. "You sound like my son," I blinked. "You've had," she said softly. "He moved out last year. College." I nodded. Something tightened in my chest. That explained the distance, maybe. Or the way she sometimes looked at me, half fondness, half restraint. We walked together to the corner, quiet between us. The air smelled like wet leaves and coffee grounds. "You remind me of him sometimes," she said. "Not in how you look. In how you listen. I'm not sure if that's good or bad." "It's human," she said. "That's rare." At the stoplight, she reached to fix the collar of my jacket. A small, instinctive gesture. Her fingers brushed my neck. Just a second. But it stayed with me longer than it should have. Neither of us said anything. She just stepped back, eyes flicking away, pretending to look at the traffic. "I'll see you tomorrow," I said quietly. She nodded. "Don't be too early." I smiled, half nervous, half certain. "We'll see." Later that night in bed, I replayed that moment, her touch, light as air, and the silence that followed. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The next week felt off. She wasn't at the cafe on Tuesday, or Wednesday. The new girl at the counter didn't know how to make my coffee right. Too sweet, too certain. By Thursday, I almost convinced myself to stop coming. Almost. Then she was there. Behind the counter again, apron little wrinkled, hair pulled back tighter than usual. "You disappeared," I said. "I was helping at the clinic," she said. "Someone called in sick." She didn't meet my eyes. I wanted to ask if she was okay, I didn't. Instead, I took the cup she poured. Too hot this time. And waited for her to look up. Nothing. When I came back on Friday, she was sitting by the window, not working. Just sitting, hands folded, gaze somewhere else. I slid into the chair across from her without thinking. "Rough week?" I asked. She gave a quiet laugh. "You could say that. A beat. 2. I think I need to stop being here so much," she said, still looking outside. The words landed heavy. I asked. She hesitated, not long, but long enough. "Because people talk." Ah, there it was. The first real line drawn. I tried to smile, but it didn't fit right. "Let them. They don't know anything." Her eyes flicked toward me, soft but firm. "That's exactly why they talk." She picked up her cup, then set it down again. "You're young," she said. "You think things like this are simple." "Things like what?" She didn't answer. The bell above the door rang. My aunt stepped in, umbrella dripping, eyes scanning the place. "Ah, there you are," she said to me. "I thought you'd gone straight to the clinic." I froze. My aunt knew her. Of course she did. Same night shifts, same small town. They greeted each other easily. Familiar. Too familiar. When my aunt went to order, she leaned toward me and whispered, "Don't bring her too much trouble." Then she winked. I couldn't tell if it was a joke or a warning. After she left, neither of us spoke. She busied herself wiping the counter that didn't need wiping. Finally, she sighed. "Your aunt means well." "I know. She also knows I should be smarter than this." "Than what?" Her gaze lingered on me, and in that second, I thought she might actually say it. Instead, she stepped closer to take my empty cup. Our fingers brushed, not by accident this time. The air between us changed, quieter, denser. I could hear her breathing. She started to say something, but stopped halfway. "You should go. Before the rain starts again." I stood there not moving. She looked up, finally meeting my eyes. "Please." And I almost said her name. Almost told her she didn't have to pretend this wasn't real. But I didn't. I just nodded, turned toward the door, and walked out, heart caught somewhere between what almost happened and what still could. Outside, it started to rain. It was the first warm evening in weeks. The cafe had already closed, but the air outside smelled faintly of coffee and the last few blooms of spring. She was locking the door when she saw me waiting across the street. "You didn't listen," she said, half smiling. "I never said I would." She hesitated, glancing around the quiet street. Then, after a small sigh, she motioned toward the sidewalk. "Walk with me then." Just a few minutes. We walked past the clinic, past the bus stop, where the streetlights hummed low. She didn't say much, neither did I. Our footsteps filled the silence. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded smaller than usual. "I saw your aunt today. She asked if you'd mentioned me." I looked at her. "What did you say?" "That you're polite, quiet. A little lost." I laughed under my breath. "That last part's accurate." She smiled, but her eyes didn't match it. "You shouldn't be. You're too young to already feel stuck." Something in her tone made me stop. "You talk like you've already given up." "I've learned to live with what I have," she said softly. "That's not giving up, it's surviving." Her hand brushed the railing beside her as she spoke. Absent-minded, like she needed something to hold on to. We sat on a bench near the park. The air was heavy with that early summer stillness, when even the wind seems unsure. She looked tired. Not from work, from carrying something invisible. "I didn't plan for this," she said. "You coming here, me noticing." "Noticing what?" A pause. Then, "You know what?" Her voice cracked just slightly. The first time I'd heard it that way. "I try not to," I said, barely above a whisper. "But I do." She looked at me then, fully, no walls, no filters. The kind of look that makes every excuse fall apart. "You shouldn't," she said. "You don't know what you want yet." "I know what I feel." "Feelings change, maybe," I said. "But this one hasn't." The words just slipped out. Quiet, certain, too late to take back. She turned away, exhaling slowly, rubbing her hands together like she was trying to erase the moment. "You remind me," she said, voice trembling, "what it felt like to be chosen before everything got complicated." I didn't move. A car passed, its headlights sweeping across her face. Eyes glassy, jaw tight, then, softer. "You think this is kindness, but it's cruel. For both of us." I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that it wasn't cruel, it was human. But I couldn't find the words. When she finally looked back at me, her eyes held both fear and something dangerously close to tenderness. Her hand shifted on the bench. Close enough that I could feel its warmth, just not enough to touch. We stayed like that, the world shrinking 2 inches. Then she whispered, "If I let you." She stopped. Didn't finish, didn't need to. The question hung there between us, unfinished, undeniable, and already too late. She wasn't there the next day, or the day after. At first, I thought maybe she was sick again. The clinic, the long shifts, the endless rain. But the cafe stayed open. I could see someone else behind the counter, cheerful and unfamiliar. When I asked, the girl said, "She's taking some time off," just like that, no warning, no explanation. The empty space she left behind felt louder than any goodbye. I stopped by every morning anyway. Not for the coffee, it didn't taste right anymore, but for the habit of waiting, the sound of the door chime, the chance she might walk in, apron in hand, pretending nothing had changed. She didn't. By the third week, I stopped going altogether. My aunt asked why. I told her the place closed early now. She didn't press. But the look she gave me said she knew more than I wanted her to. Then, one night, my aunt mentioned her name casually over dinner. "She's transferring," she said. "The clinic downtown needed someone experienced. It's a good opportunity." The word transferring hit harder than I expected. Like something final pretending to sound practical. "Did she tell you that?" I asked. "She mentioned it," my aunt said. "Said she needed a fresh start." Fresh start. Another phrase that sounded like moving on. That night, I typed a message. "I stopped by today. You weren't there. I hope you're okay." Then another. "I keep thinking about that night. The bench, the almost," and another shorter. "Please just tell me you're fine." None of them felt right. Too much, too bare. I deleted all three and stared at the blank screen until my reflection stared back from it. Tired, uncertain, a little angry at myself for hoping. A few days later I saw her, by accident, outside the pharmacy talking to someone, a man, maybe her ex, older. Familiar in the way shared history looks on two people who've tried to move on but haven't fully. He said something that made her laugh, quietly. That same small, careful smile I used to think was mine. She touched his arm, briefly, naturally, and I realized in that second that I didn't actually know where I stood in her life. Maybe nowhere. Maybe just in a space she'd been filling until she was ready to leave it empty again. I walked past without saying anything, didn't wave, didn't stop. When I got home, my phone buzzed. A message from her, unreadable at first glance. "You were right about the rain, it is calming." No greeting, no explanation. I typed back, "You could have told me you were leaving." Then I watched the cursor blink, waiting for a sentence that never wanted to be finished. In the end, I didn't send it. I just let the screen go dark. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. It was almost closing time when I finally saw her again, not at the cafe, not at the clinic, outside my aunt's house of all places, standing on the porch, holding a small brown paper bag. "She left this for you," my aunt said when I came home later that night. Didn't stay long. Inside was a thermos. The one I'd once admired, joking that it looked like it had lived a longer life than either of us. And a note folded twice. "You were right. The rain isn't sad, it's just honest." Nothing else. No explanation. No return address. The next morning I took the thermos to the park. The same bench, it still smelled faintly of coffee and her hand cream. I sat there for a long time, watching the city wake up. Dogs pulling their owners, buses sighing at stops, a jogger's steady breath passing by. It all felt distant, like background noise to a conversation I'd been having inside my head for weeks. Then I heard footsteps, slow, hesitant ones. When I looked up, she was there. No makeup, hair loosely tied. Different jacket, same quiet. "I wasn't sure you'd come," I said. "I almost didn't." We didn't hug, we didn't sit right away. Just stood there unsure of what the other wanted. Finally, she said, "You looked angry that day, at the pharmacy." "I wasn't angry," I said. "Just..." I stopped. She nodded, finishing it for me. "Disappointed. Confused," I said. "But maybe that's the same thing." She looked down, rubbing her thumb along the strap of her bag. "He's not coming back. We were just tying up what was left to untie." "You don't owe me that," I said. "I know." Silence again. The kind that doesn't feel empty, just honest. "I shouldn't have disappeared," she said quietly. "I thought it would make it easier." "Did it?" "No." She exhaled, shaking her head. "You're kind. Too kind. You don't know yet how that can hurt people." I almost laughed. "You think caring is a flaw? In the wrong direction, it can be." We both smiled at that, tired but genuine. The wind picked up. Leaves skittered past our feet. "I keep thinking," I said, "about that night. The bench. What you were going to say." Her eyes lifted to mine, steady now. "I was going to say, if I let you care for me, I wouldn't know how to stop it." That stayed in the air, fragile and full. "I still don't," she added. I swallowed, nodding once. "Then maybe stopping was right, maybe," she said. Then softer, "Doesn't mean it didn't matter." We stood there. The park, the cold air, the sound of our own restraint holding everything together. Before she left, she touched my sleeve. Just a light press of her fingers, a quiet acknowledgement. "Okay," she asked. I nodded. "Okay." And for the first time, it actually was. Time didn't fix anything, it just softened the edges. By the time the leaves started turning again, the cafe had a new sign, a new menu, and her name wasn't on the schedule anymore. But sometimes, on early mornings, when the light hit the counter a certain way, I'd still see her there. The echo of her hands steadying a cup, the warmth of her voice in the hum of the espresso machine. I didn't stop by as often. The habit had worn down into something gentler. Not avoidance, just acceptance. Still, every few weeks, my aunt would mention her. "She's doing home visits now. Quieter pace, fewer people to take care of." I'd nod, pretending not to care. But the truth was, I liked knowing she was still near. It was almost winter when I saw her again. Clinic parking lot. Same rain, soaked air. Same faint smell of coffee that had followed her everywhere. She was leaning against her car, thermos in hand. The same one she'd once given me. Only this time it was full. "You kept it," I said. "Of course," she replied. "You think I'd waste something that reliable?" We both laughed softly. It felt easy again. Like the tension had gone out with the summer heat. "I come here sometimes," she said. "Old habits." Me too. We walked a little, no rush in our steps, No words trying to force meaning into the quiet. When we reached the bench by the small hospital garden, not the same park, but close enough, she stopped. Funny, she said. I used to think sitting still meant nothing was happening. Now it feels like the only time I can breathe. I sat beside her. The silence stretched, comfortable this time. You look better, I said. So do you, she smiled. Less lost. I guess I stopped waiting. For me, she asked, not as a challenge, just curiosity. For anything, I said. And somehow that made room for everything else. She nodded, thoughtful. You grew up. I had help. Her eyes flicked toward me, soft, knowing. For a moment, she reached for my hand, then stopped halfway. Instead, she turned the thermos toward me. Black coffee, no sugar, still how you take it. I took it. Our fingers brushed, deliberate this time. Still how I take it? I said. We sat there until the first drops of rain began to fall, light, unhurried. Neither of us moved. It wasn't about holding on anymore. It was about knowing that we had, once, and that was enough. When she finally stood, she smiled at me the way she used to across the counter. 8:47, she said, checking her watch. You'll miss your bus. I laughed quietly. I think I'll walk, she nodded, eyes glinting with something between fondness and farewell. Then walk slow. I watched her leave, coat brushing her knees, hair damp from the rain. And for the first time, I didn't feel the ache of almost. Just a calm that came from having been seen, once completely,